Hello, and welcome to SafetyNet by FortiPhone. Today we're going to go through some of the basic features of SafetyNet. This is a brand new fresh install, so you'll see I've got this down here next to Safari. I'm going to go ahead and launch by selecting it. The very first time that you operate the application, it will stop and ask you for a 4-digit PIN code. You're basically creating a brand new PIN code that will allow you to password protect all the detailed configuration settings. I'm going to make this very easy to begin with. I'm just going to make it 1111. Now don't worry about the green that you might have seen here. That's just an artifact of the screen capture that I'm doing. It asks you to type that and confirm the PIN code, so I'm going to enter it a second time, to which it should say successful. Password is successfully changed. Again, this is something that will only be visible the very first time that you operate the application. Once you've launched it, you are given SafetyNet. SafetyNet is nearly identical in the way that it operates to Safari. So if you're familiar with the built-in Safari browser, you're very familiar already with SafetyNet. I'm going to go ahead and launch a website just to see what this would look like. So I'm going to go ahead and launch FortiPhone.com. It's loading up here. And you'll see it'll load and render the website just the same way that Safari does. I can do all the same things in Safari, like double-click to zoom in on a particular graphic. I can scroll around, again, double-click to zoom in on exactly what it is that you're interested in, zoom back out, etc. So, again, if you're familiar with Safari, you already know 99% of what you need to in order to be able to operate SafetyNet. You have the forward and the backward buttons, adding bookmarks and then the bookmark list, just the same way that the bookmarks worked in Safari. Where it differs is I'm going to go ahead and select this title bar here, and I'm going to try to go into a different website. I'm going to go into porn.com, and you'll see immediately it popped up saying, sorry, access to porn.com is not allowed. That happened very quickly because the database around the content of all these different malicious sites is kept right on the iPhone, so there's no lookup that needs to go on outside of the network. It knows what sites are good and bad, and that's built right into the application. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. So that's interesting. So we've got that built-in capability. I can go to any other site that I want to, as long as it's not something that we're trying to filter on. You'll see I have direct access to it. So how does that filtering work, and how do I configure it? Right down here you'll see that there's a little gear icon, and that is where the configuration tool is selected. Here you have home page. If you wanted to change the default home page, this is where you would do it, and that's really the only basic configuration setting. All the rest of them are protected, and this is where the PIN code comes in that you entered in when you first access the application. So here it's asking you to type in that 4-digit PIN code. Again, making sure that any access to these configuration settings are only done by the administrator. Here you see some major categories of filters. Adult content, that's what captured the porn.com. Any other, basically any other unfriendly type of website like that you may want to filter from your kids, or as a company you may want to filter on to make sure that you're not promoting a hostile work environment. That would all fall into this category. And we have some other categories here as well. Shopping, if you wanted to filter out some websites like Amazon or Zappos.com, you don't want people shopping for shoes. Social and chat, if you wanted to filter out sites like MySpace and Facebook. Again, if you wanted to protect your kids from maybe some of the people that troll in those environments. That's how you could turn all those types of sites on or off in one fell swoop. And then webmail here. Webmail is mainly there to prevent you from, or prevent the user from being able to sidestep whatever filters or whatever security that you may have set up in the built-in email application. So it's all well and good that you've set up filters on your on your core email address, and you've got spam filters and things like that set up so that no inappropriate messages go to the recipient, but if they can just jump out to webmail and go to Gmail or Yahoo or whatever, they basically sidestepped your security. So you can turn webmail on or off right from there. I'm going to go ahead, just for the sake of it, I'm going to select shopping and turn shopping on. So now when I go back here and I try to go into, let's say Zappos.com, it's going to say, sorry, Zappos is not allowed. So I've got all e-commerce sites filtered at this point, but say, okay, Zappos is, I don't want people to be able to go through and buy those things, but I do want them to have access to Amazon because that's a bookstore. So right now you'll see Amazon is filtered. Amazon.com, it's filtered, but I can turn that off easily enough. I'm just going to go here into protected settings again, and you'll see as I scroll down, we have two different options here. There's a whitelist and a blacklist. A whitelist is if there's something that we're filtering that you don't think should be filtered, you can bypass and override our settings. So I'm going to say edit whitelist. I'm going to add Amazon.com. And now, when I go back out to the root and go back into Amazon.com, you'll see in a moment that it loads right up. Voila. So again, every other e-commerce site is still filtered, every other e-commerce site is blocked, but we did manage to give Amazon.com access to the end users. So that's a nice powerful feature. So how about the blacklist? Say there's a website that we don't particularly filter right now, but you want to. Say that site is Google.com. You don't want people going to that because that will have access to other places as well. You saw that we went into Google earlier on, and obviously none of our major categories of filters were search engines. But I can go in here, again type in that, and I can edit the blacklist. And again, the blacklist are overriding our settings to make sure that something does get filtered out. So now I have blacklisted Google.com. I'm going to say done. So now when I try to go into Google.com, you'll see it is no longer allowed. So again, you have the ultimate capability right from the iPhone to be able to override our our blacklists and and make sure that you have access to certain sites. You also have the capability of overriding and making sure that you can filter out any sites regardless of whether or not we have considered them to be hostile or not. Let me show you one other feature which is very powerful. We'll scroll down here. You'll see here restrict bookmarks. Now what this is for is if for some reason you want to be able to provide access to the iPhone and provide access to the browser, but only for a select group of websites. Say that there's a couple of sites that you want people to have access to, but in general you don't want them going around surfing beyond that. I can turn on restrict bookmarks and say done, and the result there is when I try to click up here in the URL bar, it no longer gives me access to that. I can no longer add new bookmarks. I only have access to the bookmark list, so anything that's already in here I can go ahead and select. So the idea here being, if you did have that short series of bookmarks that you wanted to make sure that users only had access to, you'd set those bookmarks up first, and then you'd say restrict to bookmarks, and then lo and behold, it will be right there, and that will be those will be the only sites that you have access to. So only one other setting that I want to tell you about, and that is, again, type in the PIN code one more time, go down to the bottom here, and you have the change PIN option. So if for some reason you want to change the PIN that you've selected is either too easy or may have been compromised, you can go ahead and change the PIN there. And I'm going to go ahead and select that. So instead of 111, I'm going to make it 1, 2, 3, 4. Try it again. Make sure that you've typed it in correctly, and then the PIN change has been saved automatically. and you're good to go. So that is SafetyNet. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you have happy surfing.